This webinar is organized in coordination with the European Innovation Council and more in details with the EIC Programme Manager Hedi Karray, and in collaboration also with the EIC Communities project. EIC Communities project is a Horizon Europe project with the aim of valorize and support EIC-funded projects. So we are working together with the EIC in order to give visibility and to organize online initiatives to create opportunities for the EIC project to get in contact with the relevant stakeholders and topics for them, and everything is done thanks to establishment of 3 communities of practice, one dedicated to cleantech, one to health, and one to industry. That includes also artificial intelligence and space. And that's why we are here together with this series of events dedicated to artificial intelligence. So for more information on the projects and stakeholders that are members of our communities of practice, you can visit the deepsync.eu website. You will find all the members of our communities of practice. Today's event is organized also in the context of the Future Tech Week, that is a satellite event of the EIC Summit. And in the deepsync.eu platform, there is the full calendar of events that are taking place in this week, so from today to the 11th of April. So now I give the floor to Hedi Karray to introduce this webinar and also to anticipate the second event of the Future Tech Week dedicated to artificial intelligence. Please, Hedi.
Thank you,
I give you the floor.
Hello, everyone. So happy today to have all of you in this webinar regarding the building trust in AI, in which we will address the safety, security concerns, but other ones. So those this webinar and the upcoming one will be next week, next Thursday. On the 10th of April. So the next one will be on the mind of machines, in which we will tackle the AI awareness and consciousness. So I'm kindly asking you to register and to join us for this very exciting webinar that will be on Thursday. So back to the today's one, and especially regarding the trust in AI. Just to give you an overview about why we are doing this series of webinars. So the objective is to dive in AI topic beyond the hype, because AI is a topical issue and is a historical topic in the science, in the computer science. And with the hype that we have today, there is a lot of speculation, there is a lot of, hype about AI and so on. But real problems and limitations are still there. So we try with the experts from different perspectives to understand the current situation and the future. This is very important. When we look to innovation, we look to how to make AI more powerful, but in the same time, more trustful, more safe, more secure, and so on. So we would like to tackle these aspects from the research community perspective, from the startups, from the innovators perspective, from the social and humanities science perspective, and from the business perspective, also the policymakers. So we try to bring all those backgrounds around the table through the webinar in order to dive from those different perspectives and try to align and have a common understanding about the current situation and the recommendation action for the future and how to innovate in the future to make responsible AI. This is what we are committed to, make innovation, but responsible AI innovation. And today I'm happy to have a webinar with distinguished speakers from that backgrounds, as I said. So we will start with Professor Haj Ben Khalifa from Staffordshire University. Then we'll have Martin Stolk from Deploy, which is an EIC awarded startup. We have also Professor Alessandro Gabbiadini from University of Milano will bring the perspective from the social and humanities sciences. From the business perspective, we have two speakers from EQS Group who will also bring the business perspective and how AI and trustful AI can be incorporated in enterprises. And from the policy makers, we have my colleague Frederick Gross-Holst from the EU AI office. So I'll start with Frederick to give her the floor to to welcome you and provide an overview about the AI office and especially the safety unit.
Thank you so much, Hedi. As Hedi has said, I'm Friederike Grosse-Holz. I'm one of the workstream leads in the AI safety unit of the AI office. So maybe a couple of words on what the AI office does. So we are supporting innovation and trustworthy AI in the EU. We have several units focused specifically on innovation support. We also are implementing the world's first regulation on frontier AI. That's the EU AI Act. And this is the focus of the unit that I'm working with, that I'm working in, the A3 unit, the AI safety unit, is on the implementation of this AI Act. So the AI Act provides two levels of regulation for advanced AI. On the one hand, there's applications of AI, where most applications actually are not regulated. There's just a select few that are considered high risk, such as medical devices, toys, these sorts of things that need to follow certain transparency obligation and risk mitigation obligations. Then there's a very short list of practices that are prohibited in the EU. This includes stuff like social scoring. And then, as I say, most of the AI applications are not regulated on that level. In addition, and this AI application-based regulation is enforced by the member states. So there, at the AI office, we support the member states in their implementation. In addition to this application-specific regulation, and probably more interestingly for this group, the AI Act also foresees some regulation on what's called general purpose AI models. So these would be the most advanced models. For instance, the GPT-01 model that's behind ChatGPT at the moment. At the moment, they are mostly large language models. And the regulation on general purpose AI models is actually supervised by the AI office itself at a European level. So this is what my team is doing, essentially. We have a couple of different work streams. We need to basically write more of the law because the AI Act is very high level on these general purpose AI models. We need to collaboratively work with providers to see how they can follow the rules, given how dynamic this technology is, and some related activities. So why do we do all of this? Well, if you are sort of following the news and maybe you are on X, then you will see, you will have seen that there's been really, really rapid, unprecedentedly fast developments in general purpose AI. So 2 years ago, the models couldn't really quite count to 10. And nowadays, they write and execute code. They actually write over 25% of the code at Google these days, which is crazy. They create hyper-realistic deepfakes. I bet you've all seen this video of Morgan Freeman, who's not Morgan Freeman, claiming some stuff, or others. They support people on very complex tasks. My own background academically, for instance, is in biotechnology and bioinformatics, and I've been both thrilled and very scared to see how easy it now gets to do certain things in biology. And all of this, experts actually say, may lead to a scenario that is generally called artificial general intelligence, or AGI, within this decade. And this is described in terms like, wow, once we reach this next step and we actually get AGI, you have a country of geniuses in every data center. You have a form of AI that replaces most cognitive work and therefore significantly shifts global power balances, how decisions get made, how infrastructure gets run, how medicine gets done, who is able to develop both helpful and harmful things in biology and cyber, etc. So this will be completely transformative. And it sounds kind of crazy, honestly, when you say there's going to be a country of geniuses in every data center. But it's not just me saying this. There's this thing called a Turing Prize. This is a bit similar to a Nobel Prize, but for computer sciences. We now have 5 AI researchers in the world who have gotten this Turing Prize. And 3 of them by now actually say that AGI, that AGI is likely to happen within this decade, and that if it happens, it's going to be a serious threat to the survival of the human species. Like, let this sink in for a second. Like 3 out of 5 say this is a threat to the species. What's going on with this technology? We got to figure this out, right? By the way, the 4th says it's amazing, and the 5th says, yes, it might be a threat to the survival of the human species, but that's okay because robots replacing humans is just the next step in evolution. So these are the 5 Turing laureates. This is also not just a Silicon Valley tech company hype. None of these work for companies, except one. That's the one who says it's going to be amazing. So you actually have pretty serious academics very worried about this technology. At the same time, you have a tremendous opportunity here, right? If you have a country of geniuses in every data center, like, take a moment to think what this could mean for healthcare, for inclusion, for, you know, all sorts of climate, all sorts of problems we need to solve in this world. So bringing it back to the slightly more operational level, this is the sort of trajectory that we're on. Well, then the task for the AI office clearly is to work with the companies and with other stakeholders on implementing this world's first framework for governing advanced AI in a way that actually ensures that there's appropriate risk assessment and risk mitigation and transparency, while allowing innovation to flourish and ensuring that this technology gets widely used. And yeah, that's what we do at the AI office. Super happy to be here today.
Perfectly. Thank you, Frederick, for those clarifications. And let's start with our first speaker today, Professor Elhaj Ben Khalifa, who is a full professor and head of professorate at Staffordshire University. He's also founder and director of the Smart System AI and Cybersecurity Research Center. He also directed before the Cloud Computing and Application Center and the Mobile Fusion Applied Research Center. He has over 20 years in AI research. He worked on, let's say, biological inspired self-healing system using evolutionary algorithms. His research spans AI-driven predictive analytics in healthcare, in cybersecurity, semantic data models, and more recently, AGI, explainable AI, and Edge AI. So, Professor, the floor is yours. Please share the screen and go ahead.
So you can see my screen?
Yes, we see the screen, but not in the presentation mode. So
okay. Wrong time for the phone call. Let's put it on silent. Okay.
Yes, we have the screen.
Okay.
All is perfect.
Thank you so much, Hedi. Thank you, EIC team, for the invitation. It's my great pleasure to be with you today to share some of my perspectives on secure AI. It's a trendy area, and we're trying to connect the dots in terms of what we have done in terms of research previously and how we can link it to this current trend of secure AI. My aim in today's talk, given the diverse kind of audience, is not to get, and also with the constraint of time, is not to get deep into the actual attacks and countermeasures, but it's more about raising awareness around secure AI and cover as much as possible the area, and especially the future trends and the future kind of things, alarming kind of aspects of secure AI. So why do we bother? Why is it important? So the adoption of AI recently is increased tremendously. The global AI market is expected to reach more than $1 trillion by 2031. 82% of organizations are either using AI or exploring its use. 65% of organizations worldwide have embraced generative AI. We're going to see more of that in the future. And almost 80% of currently used devices feature some form of AI. Why so much interest in AI? So what's driving that kind of high adoption rates? So there are a few reasons to why I think there's that huge appetite for AI. One of them is the AI's capability boom itself, which has not only gradually improved, but it has seen exponential improvement. And also the capabilities of AI has shown that it can outperform the human kind of the human capabilities in many aspects. The massive economic potential, 15.7 trillion projected kind of income in the global economy by 2030. And the geopolitical race, where whoever leads in AI could lead in military economy and the political power. This is actually a reality that we are seeing in the media on a daily basis. Risk, ethics, and media. Risk and ethics, they create fear. Fear create more debates, create more research. And the media obviously talks a lot about the fears and the hopes, and always hype fuels more hype. So that's why there is more interest in AI. And therefore, AI actually is used in all sectors now and making critical decisions. Therefore, if AI is vulnerable, and so we are. That's why AI security or secured AI becomes very, very important. So imagine if your AI doctor diagnosed you wrong because it was hacked, or if your self-driving car ignored the stop sign because an attacker altered it, if a chatbot leaked millions of users' private messages. Okay, this is actually happening, and it's not science fiction. We see this kind of attacks happening frequently. Some of them we hear about, and others we don't hear about. Okay. This is a typical kind of case study I give to my master's students, where I teach them about ethics in emerging technologies. And I give them an example of an expert system. Expert systems emerged in the 80s. And what we see now, AI kind of systems, is an improved or the next kind of generation of expert systems. But this is non-AI based expert systems. And usually this case study, it takes us half an hour to have very interesting discussions in terms of who is liable for misdiagnosis and mistreatment. Is it the software? Is it the knowledge engineer? Is it the user? Is it the hospital? And then we can spend actually hours debating this in terms of who is liable. And then my question at the end, when I finish this case study, I tell them, well, this is not AI powered. This is only rule-based expert system. Now imagine this AI powered decision. It adds more complexity in terms of to define who is liable. Therefore, the AI security is different from traditional software security. Traditional software security protects code infrastructure, where you control exactly what the software will do. However, the AI security, or secure AI in another sense, it has to protect the data, the models, and the behavior of the model. It has to look into threats such as model theft, adversarial examples, data poisoning, privacy leakage. AI is not deterministic, and therefore it can behave differently. Also, the attack surface includes inputs, training data, and outputs. Okay, so here the difference between why secured AI is actually more complex than securing traditional software or non-AI based software. This is what I just mentioned now, the difference between securing AI and AI for security. There's to differentiate between the two. So secured AI is what the presentation is about. It's about making the AI secure. We have to secure the data, the model, and the behavior of the model, also the infrastructure, and also make sure that it has proper governance. While AI for security is actually developing AI solutions to enhance cybersecurity tools. Okay, so the focus we have now is on the secured AI. Just here some information to emphasize on the importance of secured AI, that it's not optional and it becomes essential. Okay, because it affects and impacts us as human society, economy, and governments. As I mentioned before, when we talk about securing AI, we have to look into the whole ecosystem, the AI ecosystem, okay, which differs from normal traditional software. So we have to look into the data, the model, which trains on the data, and the use of the model. And then always think about in the modern lives, we usually find more than one AI model, okay, one AI system. For example, if we talk about an AI robot, AI-based robot, something like that, they have multiple AI systems, okay, that makes it even more complex. And obviously the infrastructure where the, so these models, you assume they are actually, they're interacting between each other. So you're not only solving, so the security problem may actually occur in one of the AI systems and not the others, but it will affect the others because they are working collaboratively. But also you have to look into the infrastructure where these AI systems are actually established, and also into the governance of the, so you have to watch ethical, legal aspects when you design your AI solution. So these are just some illustrations of these different kind of secured AI kind of attacks, such as the model theft, where the hacker or the person who's interested in the model will access will have some kind of access. Then we extract data, we extract some information about your model. Then based on that information, we start to reconstruct the model, and therefore, when you reconstruct the model, actually there's what we call here a model theft, and you can use it for other purposes. Privacy attacks on AI models. Again, a query happens and there's a response to the model. Then when it's not one query, but a series of queries, then the hacker or the person who's interested in that data will do some inference and analysis, and then private data can be exposed. And there are some different techniques or attacks in AI models, such as membership inference attacks, model inversion attacks, training data extractions, and that might be actually even more examples of these attacks. Data poisoning is the data before actually data is actually, the data that's used to train the model gets poisoned, and therefore that means the model is trained on wrong data or inappropriate data or in poisoned data, and therefore you'll have incorrect predictions. The last one here is is when there's adversarial attacks where your input is perturbated, okay, and then instead of showing the right classification, which is a stop sign in this case, it shows actually a different classification, and it shows like speed. Instead of you stopping, you go 45 miles an hour, and actually can kill people, can actually damage some infrastructure. So trends and future directions. I always say that if you are trying to solve any cybersecurity problems, you have to not only think about the technology side, not only think about the technical countermeasures. You have to actually look into the three intersecting areas: the technology, process, and people. Surveys and technical analysis shows that technology only shows only 18% of the problem, while the process shows and people shows the rest of the issue. So it's the technology, process, and people. I'm going to give some examples and how this actually, the three of them are important for the emerging trends of insecure AI. And also, I come from a school of thought that you can never secure any system 100%. So there will always be vulnerabilities. There will be always, because sometimes it's a human error. So even if it's access control problem, sometimes it's human error because the human leaves the data open somewhere. So you can never assume that you can actually, through technology or process, you can actually secure a system. And therefore, we have to think about resilience, which combines all the elements of trustworthiness and challenge tolerance. You can see security is only one part of it, but there's aspects of fault tolerance, dependability, trustworthiness, all these kind of aspects. So you can see how these kind of areas can be applied to solve the current and future trends in secure AI. So these are the challenges we are facing now, and we will continue to face in the future when it comes to secure AI. Adversarial robustness. So these are kind of things that we wish to develop to actually to countermeasure insecure AI. So we want to detect and resist adversarial attacks automatically. Privacy preserving AI. Secure model sharing. You want maybe to develop some fingerprinting or watermarked kind of AI models, so actually not when they are shared securely. Explainable, auditable AI. You need to make your model auditable in the sense that you can audit if there is any abnormalities. AI red teaming and testing. We need to always keep doing proactive attacking and testing of the AI models to find vulnerabilities. There are always vulnerabilities. We just need to search for them and maybe use AI solutions for that. Trustworthy data pipelines. We need to secure data sourcing, ensure data is not poisoned or malicious. AI alignment and safety at scale. We have to make sure that we align the AI behavior with the human values. Okay, that's very, very important. AI governance and policy was mentioned by a colleague now in terms of the EU Act and the NIST framework, and there are different kind of efforts happening to ensure that we have robust AI governance, to measure risk assessment, to measure secure AI compliance standards, and again, auditability of the AI. Then build the resilient AI. That we want to build robustness to attacks, handles bad data, continuously monitor our models and their behavior, explaining decisions, very, very important, and fallback mechanisms. If we know the system is not working, what can we do? Turn back to the human, or maybe find a different model to carry out the mission. The human factor in the securing AI, very important, as I mentioned. Many issues in cybersecurity includes insecure AI, could be human factor, which is the most difficult kind of the weakest link, if we can say. And we have to look into bias, trying to avoid bias in the data, try to minimize or eliminate end user misuse of models, social engineering, poor security practices and awareness, and weak governance. Okay. So some of the relevant research that I've done within my research center and in my research journey, which can develop and evolve to actually be applied in the area of secured AI. For example, governance. We've done 3 years of research in the area of cloud data governance. And until this moment, there is no strategy or framework for cloud data governance to the best of our knowledge. And this is the first strategy to be developed, which shows how to initiate, design, deploy, and sustain the cloud data governance. It's all about principles, policies, processes, and standards. Now that we are coming into the area called AI as a service, where AI is done in the cloud as a service, this such governance, the cloud data governance, becomes hugely important. This is not touching on the AI specifically, but can definitely extend to the AI aspects in the presence of the AI as a service. We then turned into the autonomous vehicles, connected vehicles. There is no data governance framework for autonomous vehicles. So this is probably what's causing the delay in deploying them. Here, there is no, again, a specific emphasis on AI, but there's huge, obviously, implications of AI. And there could be the extension of this data governance environment for autonomous cars or connected vehicles will be the AI aspect, which will be cross-cutting throughout the framework. And then there is a lot of talk about security by design, how we can secure AI by design. Our approach or our hypothesis or our argument is say actually by design is a bit late. We have to ensure security at requirements and by design. So we have developed, not for the AI, we have developed for the first time, to the best of our knowledge, security requirements ontology and tool that actually captures or helps software developers. This is for general software, not for AI, but can be adapted to AI. That's one of our future work. This is the first of its. If you go to any organizations, they actually use their own templates. They rely on experts. These are all about 43 available kind of security requirement frameworks or models, and you can see where the courses are. That means it's not actually comprehensive. And our ontology, we feel, or I think we argue that actually it's a holistic approach that actually combines all those security concepts and activities and the requirement concepts and activities. We're trying now to see how we can actually commercialize the actual ontology, because we have developed it into a tool that can be very useful for software requirement engineering, security requirement engineering, but also can be adapted to AI. Then the human factor and awareness. I'm giving you an example from each area: technology, human, and process. So the human factor, we have used again an ontology to show that this is again for cybersecurity engineering, not for AI, okay? But it can be specified or specialized for AI as well. But when I say cybersecurity, AI, secure AI is part of it anyway. In here, what we are saying in this ontology that a human factor is not a single stakeholder. This is the first ontology that talks about, that promotes a multi-stakeholder security, human factor in cybersecurity. So this is why there's a lot of awareness, but they're not working. There's a lot of interventions, but they're not working because they're focused on intervention of the single stakeholder, while that stakeholder human factor is linked to other factors of other stakeholders. And therefore, if you want to eliminate this issue, you have to actually address all the human factors involved involved with those different stakeholders together. And we have developed a mobile app that's actually on the App Store at the moment, which combines what we say in here: awareness and training on its own is not enough. And we have to embed psychological theories, behavioral theory. Behavioral theory is very important. How we can track behavior, how we can influence behavior, so that people, not only aware, but their behavior are positive around cybersecurity. This is very, very important aspect if you want to develop the human awareness and behavioral change around secured AI. We have also done an interesting work. My colleague now was talking about the general AI or artificial general intelligence. We have recently published a survey paper on the IEEE transactional neural networks and learning systems, which explores exploring the intersection between neural architecture research, NAS, and continual learning. The paper is available at EEE database. Please go to read through it. It explains all the available models at the moment, 11 or 12 models that try to develop the artificial general intelligence, but they have limitations. So we'll discuss all the limitations and that shows the directions for the future work. This is an actual project we're working on at the moment. We also, I think, what's behind this here is our work around the black box attacks. We've also submitted a survey paper to recently, a huge survey paper, to argue that there are no black box attacks at the moment. I mean, if there are, we don't know how they work, okay, because they're black box attacks. So, and we have shown in this paper, which was published in IEEE Access is on the left-hand side. We've created a new metric, okay? We call it feasibility metrics for transferability, where we prove that existing work that claims that they're doing black box attacks, they're actually not doing black box attacks. They're still doing gray box attacks because they still know some information about the model, okay? So in our research, we have progressed from that. We believe that we have created an adaptive black box adversarial attack on network intrusion detection system, obviously an AI-based one. And this paper actually is being finished, and we are submitting this paper hopefully soon. And then the attack is not the most important, because what we're going to learn from the attack, so we can actually create defense countermeasures. So that's going to be the more interesting one, because we know how black box attacks can work. Therefore, we can actually, and at least in one way, we cannot create some defense proactively. So if it happens, it's we are protected. And then this is an old work that I have done, which is still a passion, an area of passion that I still work on at the moment, is the biologically inspired system. I mean, if you think about artificial intelligence, it's biologically inspired, be it neural networks or evolutionary algorithms or artificial immune system, they're all biologically inspired systems. And I think this is the work that I have done around self-healing systems or evolvable systems. I did a lot of work around evolvable hardware, how we can make hardware self-healing, self-kind of organizing. But the same thing was called at some point 20 years ago, evolvable software, how we can evolve the software to actually adapt to changes, to new requirements, to faults, for instance. So there's still mileage in working in the aspects of phylogeny, which is the development of genetics or evolution algorithms, the ontology, which is the development of the system itself. Instead of having ad hoc kind of system, you have a structure system, like the embryonic approach. You have multicellular organism, like our tissues, our organisms, and then you work collaboratively and cooperatively for self-healing purposes. And the epigenesis here is more and more the learning system, such as the artificial immune system or the nervous system, which is from which we got the neural networks. The combination of evolution algorithms with the neural networks is another interesting thing in terms of how to make your neural networks evolve to adapt to new changes. Some part of the general AI or artificial general intelligence, and so on. So that's the end of my presentation. Sorry if I went too quick because I think I was constrained with time. So it's over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Haj, for this insightful presentation and also preparing the scene for the other presentations later. So we have time for one quick questions from the audience, if there is any. And then also you can submit your question through the chat, and Elhaj will go through and answer in the chat. So I don't see any live question. Something that interests me a lot, Elhaj, that you mentioned at the end regarding this bio-inspired approaches. And I have in mind this also regarding, let's say, the multidisciplinarity of the approach when tackling AI security. So you have mentioned this aspect about bio-inspired, but what other kind of disciplines that can be also exploited in order to build AI security?
Yeah, I think this is very important question. I always say in my talks that governments and organizations, they compete for obvious reasons. The one thing that should not be competing in and should be more collaborative is cybersecurity, because it's cybersecurity or AI now, is because all our system will be AI. It's not like I don't care. It's the other business. I don't care. It's the other country. I think it goes cross borders. And it's one area that governments and organizations, we have to collaborate and work together. So interdisciplinarity, obviously, between computer science and cybersecurity experts. We talked about the contribution from ethics and social sciences is very, very important to bring in the safe or AI safety perspective. We talked also about the insights from the law and the policy studies, such as the EU AI Act, for instance. It's very important to watch that while you're designing or developing your AI solutions, and how this helps, all this helps, kind of this legal stuff. The legal framework ensures accountability, international governance and regulation, but also the legal experts can define liabilities. I mentioned that small case study about liability, which becomes even more problematic when it's AI solution. When it's also insights from cognitive science and human interaction, human AI interaction, because at the end we want maybe one of the solutions that we have to think about in the future is not AI doing its own things by its own. Maybe to have some kind of interactivity with the human, and we actually need to bring that human AI interaction aspects into place. Data science and privacy research. There's all aspects of interdisciplinarity that needs to be in place to ensure, as I mentioned, AI, the difference between secure AI and securing software. So software only look at the code, okay? With AI is the data, is the model, is the behavior, is the infrastructure, is the collaboration between different AI systems, is the human in the loop as well. So it's quite complex and hence requires interdisciplinary research.
That's perfect. And I think we'll dive on that question later in the panel. But let me now introduce the second speaker, and I'm happy to have Martin Stolk, the founder and the CEO of Deploy. Deploy is an awarded EIC startup working on AI governance software to centralize transparency, explainability, and traceability of AI decision, which is very well matched to the challenges you have cited, Elhaj. So, Martin, please, you have the floor and go ahead.
Thanks a lot for the introduction. I'll start sharing my screen. That should go fine, I guess. That should work, I think, isn't it? Yeah, okay, perfect. So thanks a lot for the short introduction. I'm Hedi Karray. I'm one of the founders and the CEO of Deploy. I have a background in data science and started my first company 7 years ago, more or less out of frustration a bit. So I think a lot of the people also in this call have been working in data science for quite some years and have probably seen firsthand how difficult it is to get from MVP or POC to actually models in production, to operationalize models, which is a pity because in the end, the potential of AI is huge, I believe. Not only now, but also already 7 years ago. The potential is huge. So for me, that was the reason to start my own company, to create an environment in which companies and organizations can develop safely machine learning and AI models and bring them to production. So think about healthcare, think about our government, and think about financials, which in my opinion should use AI much, much more. And let us be the platform to do it in a safe way, but please start using it, because I strongly believe we should, if we want to maintain high levels of healthcare and high levels of a strong financial system. So I guess most people are bombarded with the premise of AI. Things like AI is the biggest innovation of all time. Competition is going quick. You have to catch up, otherwise, we all doubt if you still exist in 10 years from now. In all honesty, I think the people who say those kind of things are quite right. But on the same hand, if I look at those organizations, a lot of organizations we work with, this is the reality we see. They created quite some use cases over the past years, but only a few of them are in production, and it's often a bit messy if I look at it. So some models are living here, some softbot models. They also have some generative AI models, which are in the end bought from vendors. There's some open source stuff. They also have some tools where they use AI, like Teams or Notion or those kind of tools. But it's hard to have transparency. It's hard to keep overview. There's limited monitoring to what happens. It's time consuming, and it's hard to comply to regulations. So not only the AI Act, but also GDPR, ISO standards, etc. Those kind of challenges we see. And bottom line, that means that about 80% of all the initiatives that they start are failed projects. It's a graveyard of POCs and MVPs, which unfortunately I've also seen way too often in the past years. Some failed projects and data scientists that work on innovation stuff that never really see daylight, which I think is a big pity. So for us, that was the reason to start Deploy. It's a central place to create overview, to easily onboard models and to monitor and explain them, and also to easily comply to regulation, such that companies can actually bring it to production. And all of that integrated in the infrastructure of our customers, such that there's no need for migration, but actually everything stays within your boundaries. So enough pitching, but what can we actually learn from companies that are way ahead of other companies? So what do they do different, those who actually use machine learning and AI for years, compared to all the other companies who tend to talk a lot about it, but if you really look at what they have running in production, it's limited. So I have a few examples here. For example, Bank is one of the biggest neobanks of Europe. Hedi is an innovating cybersecurity platform. But yeah, I had a look at some of those tech companies and tried to see why they're actually ahead of the majority of companies and organizations. So first of all, what is the situation with those companies? Well, I think what you tend to see is that they have quite some use cases as well. So it's not just limited to one use case. They have a vision on where they want to be in a few years from now. And in that vision, they fit a few different applications, a few different use cases that's going to help them to get to the next phase. Secondly, they also have a lot of policies in place and guidelines and external regulation. So it's not I'm not talking about companies that can just freely do whatever they want with no customers asking questions or no regulators asking questions. I'm actually talking about regulated industries. I think the biggest differentiator there is that they have a vision on where they want to be, and hence take also things like explainability, monitoring, etc. They take that serious, just like any successful digital company 10 years ago took cybersecurity serious, DevOps serious. So I think it really, really pays off to take those things serious. So what do we mean with that? If we zoom into a specific use case, let's say fraud detection at the government or fraud detection at a bank or an insurance company. I'll first dive into really shortly what it means in terms of regulation. So you have a lot of different things coming back in, for example, the AI Act, but also in ISO standards. And a few I want to highlight here are the interpretation of output or explainability, human oversight, transparency, and also the monitoring and logging of models. those things also come back in different regulations and different standards. And so I think it's super important to take those things serious to actually move to production with your high impact models. And it's also without regulation, I think it's super important to take this thing serious because it enables you to understand what models are doing, and it enables you to give feedback and steer models in the right direction, and hence use AI safely. So let's look at a typical journey for an organization to work on the first models. So often they train a model or they fine-tune a model. So they can use whatever open source framework, but they can also use external models. They do some version tracking and commit versions to things like MLflow. I'm not sure if you are familiar with these things, but MLflow is a great open source tool to basically keep track of all your experiments. And then at some point they committed to Git, to version control. Those kind of things are quite standard to whatever you are working with, no matter if it is generative AI, but then it's fine-tuning or it's your own open source models. And until now, most data scientists like to do these kind of things. Then they have to deploy those models or bring those models to production. That can be via deploy, can also be with other tools. And you probably host that on a cloud provider, let's say AWS or Azure or Google Cloud. Or since we are all here, I think with a European heart and a European mind, let's use OVH or Scaleway or another European cloud provider. That doesn't really matter. But at some point, the data scientists like to bring those models to production. Still okay, still fun to do. And then other questions are often asked. So privacy, risk, compliance, they will probably start asking questions, and often for good reasons. But that's also the moment that a lot of data scientists start to underestimate how much is needed to actually bring things to production. So you certainly have to think about monitoring, alerts, also decide on responsibilities when things go to production. Often that same data scientist doesn't really like to be responsible for the upcoming 10 years for those AI models. Documentation, well, we have LLMs now, but most technical people I met in my life, they don't really like to write documentation. You have to predict and explain those models to end users, and not just give a prediction like, okay, this person is a fraudster and this person is not a fraudster, but also explain why. You probably get feedback. You have to do something with that feedback. You have to continuously improve those models. Those kind of controls around a model, those are often the hard parts, and those are often the reason that people say, it's not going to production. So it's really important to also include that in your design of building an AI system. So how does that look in practice? I think the first thing is to register all the models in a central place. This is how it looks like in deploy, but you can choose your own tools for that, of course. Secondly, it's the monitoring and the alerting and also acting on what you see. So if you write down in your policy that you should act whenever accuracy is below 80%, show that you do. Make sure you have alerts in place, but also make sure that you act whenever there's an alert. So make sure those alerts are sent to your Teams or to your Slack or whatever internal tooling you use. Make sure those alerts are there and that people follow up on the alerts. Otherwise, it's policy on paper, but no controls in practice. Just like when you get a warning in your car, you have to act on it. Same holds for models. The third thing, explain how models make predictions. So this is still quite easy with a tabular model. If you talk about LLMs, you can still add explainability to those models, especially if there's an open source model which you use via Hugging Face or so. There are explainability matters for those kind of large language models, which are, for example, explaining why certain tokens were created, so why certain parts of the sentences were predicted. And if things are wrong, you can also trace back why it's wrong. So that's why explainability is so important, and you can give proper feedback. And with the feedback, models become better and smarter over time. And lastly, make sure that you document the models. And I would advise you to do that in tooling as well, because then you have a central place for the documentation. You can create standard templates and assessments for that. And you can also do regular audits on whatever you documented it. Because what you think is good right now is probably not good enough anymore in 1 or 2 years from now. And also our human values change over time. I think we have a really good example of that in the Netherlands, where I'm also currently based. Our government had to resign over a model which was detecting fraud in a pretty biased and discriminatory way. Unfortunately, we don't really have any proper government anymore for the past years now. And it was all because they were using an AI model, which was fine 10 years ago, but not fine anymore at the moment. Our values changed, the way we think about fraud is changing. And hence also the models had to be updated, but never were updated. There was no monitoring, no explainability, no feedback loop. And hence, in the end, also a model which was not performing according to our values anymore. So it's super important to keep thinking about the models you're using. And all of the things I just showed are, in the end, quite easy to do. I think with using the right tools, this shouldn't be something that's going to cost you hundreds and thousands of euros. This is something you can do within a few days. But it adds the controls you need to be able to use those models in healthcare, in banks and insurers, and also at the government. So I think it's crucial to at least have those minimal standards and those minimal controls in place. And the main reason to do so is not just because we want to keep control on AI. I also strongly believe we should go much faster as Europe. But the good thing is, research shows that if you take those controls serious, you often grow way faster. Or if you talk about the public area, you're probably way more efficient with the money you're spending. So learning showed that if you did that in the past with cybersecurity, so you properly invested in cybersecurity or in data governance, you see that those organizations typically grow 2 to 3 times faster than those organizations that only talk about it or don't take it serious. And the same will hold for AI. If you take those things serious, if you invest in it with a proper plan where you want to be in a few years from now, you'll typically see that those companies move much, much faster than the ones that don't take it serious. And that's not just me saying, it's McKinsey, Forrester, Harvard. There's a lot of research on this that shows that if you invest in those controls, you'll probably be better off in a few years from now. And that's it. So if you have any more questions, or if you want to have a chat after this this session, let me know. You can reach me on LinkedIn. You can send us an email, whatever you prefer. But happy to stay in contact and happy to answer any questions.
Great.
What's your
Thank
time?
you, Martin. That's
Right.
perfect. So if there is any question from the audience, please go ahead. And also there is a chat if you want. So if there is any question, please raise your hand. I don't see any hand raised, but I have a question for you, Martin, regarding the challenge between making trustworthy, explainable, and in the same time making powerful AI solutions. So how to get those go in parallel?
I think that, so from my experience, not just what I believe, but also what my experience is, I think those things can go hand in hand, but that's why I emphasize so much on it. If you try to make a plan and think ahead what you think your business should be in 5 years from now, it makes total sense that you want, whatever you're building, it makes sense that you want to have control, that you want to have explainability in place, that you want to have monitoring in place. Everyone understands that just going quickly and just forget about all the controls won't get you anywhere on the long term. So I think those things should go hand in hand, and it depends a bit on the type of use case. So if you're building a low-risk chatbot, I can imagine that having some extra prompts in place to give some guidance might be sufficient. But if you're building an LLM which is being used by general practitioners in healthcare, I think everyone also understands you need to have more than just some prompting. So it depends a bit on the use case, but I think by zooming out and actually think where you want to be in a few years from now, it's obvious, and it also makes total sense that you invest in things like explainability. And yeah, there are so many explainability methods already provided by research, provided by platforms like Deploy. I think you shouldn't compromise on those kind of things just because you want to go even quicker and want to go cheaper maybe as well. In the end, that won't pay off. Those things will never make it to production. You're just wasting money.
And what is the rate of adoption regarding such kind of tools? Like from you, I mean, you are collaborating with AI developers and so on. What is the degree of adoption for such kind of tools? And if, I mean, this is also I think that let's ask you the question, how much the regulation push towards this adoption?
Yeah, I'm quite happy with regulation. So there are two different personas, I think, in this world. One is the developer, and the other one is basically the legal or compliance or privacy person. So the second one is indeed pushing on those developers, like, okay, did you think about this? And for developers, those are often the annoying questions you have to think about. So we really try to do that heavy lifting for them to make that as easy as possible, and that helps to get to actually have some adoption. On the same hand, it only works if you are actually really investing in AI in the first place. So if it stays within, oh, let's do some innovation where we actually have no clue where we want to be, and it also doesn't make sense for any company to sell to those organizations, I think. So I really urge people also to have a vision about where the market is going to be and where you will be in that market. If you don't even think about it, maybe it's also good that other companies are taking market share then in the end. So then you're just ignoring the biggest innovation of our time, just like you did with, I don't know, the internet 30 years ago. If you don't want to think about it, yeah, then it doesn't make sense. But those who do think about it and do have a vision, I strongly believe that, we see that adoption is pretty high then.
That's perfect. That's perfect because, I mean, when dealing with adoption, that's also allow us that, I mean, or to understand like there is some awareness regarding the risks from business perspective for sure for companies, but there is also other risks regarding the society. And I'm happy to invite Alessandro Gabbiadini, who is associate professor in the Department of Psychology at the University of Milano Bicocca, and he is the scientific director of Be Home. His research focuses on the social perception of artificial intelligence, with broader interest in the impact of emerging technologies on human behavior. So, Alessandro, the floor is yours to tell us about the AI risks for humans, for the society, and how we deal with that.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah. Okay, just one moment. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here because I think it's the first time for me which I participate in an event like this with different perspective. There is business, there is information technology, security, but also psychology. And so today I will present you a summary of the results of some recent study we conducted to understand how people and society perceive artificial intelligence. One moment, I don't know why my slide, okay. The starting point of this line of research was the report that was produced by Ipsos in 2018. And this was the first study exploring how people perceive machine learning, and especially, and it was conducted in the European Union. From the interviews presented in this report, it emerged that people don't have a single and a clear opinion about AI. Instead, individuals seems to evaluate AI based on two dimensions. The first one is social value, so how useful AI is for our society. And the second one is social risk. That means how potentially harmful AI could be. So in general, people see the potential of AI, especially in areas like healthcare, medicine, where it can bring real benefits. But at the same time, there is growing concern about how widespread AI is becoming and the possible risk that comes with it. So according to this report, people often view AI as risky, and their concern fall into four main areas. The first one is the potential for harm, like accidents for autonomous system, for example. The second one is the fear of being replaced at work or becoming too dependent on AI. The third one is the use of this technology to make generalized prediction without human judgment. And finally, the risk of limiting personal freedom. I just want to point out these keywords, harm, fear, and risk, emerged from the report because we'll come across them again in the studies I want to show you today. So the report produced by Ipsos adopted the qualitative interviews as a methodology. Therefore, we decided to adopt a quantitative statistical approach. So in this first study, we conducted a study on a sample about 400 participants from the UK and from the US, and we asked them to evaluate 25 AI applications currently on the market. These 25 applications were selected for a list of, and they resulted as the most known by people. So this is why we focus on this 25 application. And for each application, we gave our participant a brief description of 3 lines of words, and it was very neutral description. And then we asked them to report their perception of social value for that specific AI application and the perception of social risk. So more in details, after reading the description of the application, participants were asked to report how much they believe that that application was risky, was a risk for privacy and personal data violation, and was a risk for our society. And on the other hand, we also measured the perception of social value by asking them to evaluate how much they perceive that application as valuable for our society, useful for the progress of our society, and how much that application could increase the standard of living. So therefore, we were able to average the scores for each participant, and we were able to create this 2-dimensional classification based on perceived level of risk here on the Y axis and perception of social value here on the X axis. So AI applications seen as the most useful, like those in medicine, were also rated as the most risky. So high value doesn't always mean low concern. Well, on the other hand, some applications that are considered socially useful, like this one, for example, like performance evaluation, were also perceived as threatening and rated somewhat risky. So this first result shows that there is a clear tension between perceived benefit and perceived danger. But that's not all, because building on these results, in a series of follow-up studies, we experimentally explored the psychological consequences of interacting with AI technology that are perceived as dangerous or threatening. In another experiment, we focus on the effects of being evaluated by a real AI agent, in this case, as a social actor. One major area where AI is being widely used is employee recruitment, especially during the pre-selection phase. So here, an AI system usually analyzes candidates' data using pre-trained algorithms to identify the best fit for a position. So in this context, we adopted the theoretical framework of objectification in the work field to investigate the consequences of being evaluated, judged by an AI agent. Just to be clear, a small notion of objectification is the psychological process of treating a person as an object, reducing them solely to their utility by denying their full human agency and individuality. In particular, we hypothesized that being evaluated by an AI during the pre-selection process would have reduced beliefs in self-efficacy, understood as a person's ability to manage and control a situation or a given task. And in turn, this reduction in self-efficacy beliefs would have led to higher feelings to be considered as a file to be processed by the AI agents rather than a person doing an interview, a job interview. And in turn, so a higher level of objectification would have led to lower beliefs in free will and higher perception of threat. So how we conducted this study? So participants were invited to apply for a position through a fake online website, and they were randomly assigned to one out of 2 different conditions. So in one condition, they apply for the position, and then as soon as they get into the website, they were connected to an AI-based chatbot, and they were interviewed by this AI chatbot. It was a real pre-trained chatbot. Whereas in the control condition, a real human operator was behind the chat. So both chats followed the same interview script. And at the end of the session, in both conditions, all the participants were told that they have not been selected for that position. So we ran some statistical analysis, and then we tested a so-called process model to understand the undergoing psychological processes. And the results shows that participants who were interviewed by an AI chatbot report lower beliefs in self-efficacy, that in turn led to a strong feeling to being treated as a data to be processed rather than a person, which subsequently resulted in lower beliefs in free will, understood here as the belief in one's constant ability to choose and to improve one's own situation. But also what emerged was that people who were interviewed by an AI system also reported greater perception of threat. So I think that self-efficacy in the interaction with an AI chatbot is a pivotal variable. Self-efficacy, just remember, you refers to a person's belief in their own abilities to successfully perform a specific task or to handle a particular situation. It's not about general confidence, it's task-specific. And these beliefs influence how much effort people put into a task, how persistent they are, and how they respond to challenges or failures. So self-efficacy presented the main predictor of low beliefs in free will and perception of threat. Means that a lower level of self-justification, lower level of self-efficacy brings to a higher level of self-justification that in turn affected lower beliefs in free will and higher perception of AI as a threat. So AI as the threatening outgroup. So it could be that when people have been evaluated by the AI system felt less like individuals and more like data points to being processed. This phenomenon is also known as datification in the literature, and datification means turning people's actions, choices, and even emotions into data that can be tracked, measured, and used, especially by companies or AI system in general. So these results give us the opportunity to run other studies to go deeper into this process. So previous results suggest that people seem to feel threatened by AI-based application. Therefore, we conducted a series of follow-up studies to focus just on this process, on the perception of threat. We started from previous literature showing that people can perceive robots as a social actor. Robots are perceived as an outgroup, as a social outgroup. That means that we perceive robots belong to a different social group than my social group. But robots resemble the body shape of human beings. What happens when we attempt to replicate not just the body, but humans' cognitive abilities, such as intelligence, reasoning, moral judgment? Research shows that people react to autonomous technology in ways familiar to how they respond to human groups. When autonomous agents display high competence, they can be seen as threatening, not just to jobs and safety, but also to human identity and uniqueness. So according to several authors, people tend to react to AI system or autonomous agents in general in ways that mirror how we treat social groups. And what really triggers this reaction is the perception of competence. When a technology seems too competent, it starts to feel threatening, even if it's not alive. So technology that look or behave in very human ways can also trigger deeper concerns about safety, about access to resources, and even about what makes us uniquely human. In other words, autonomous agents such as AI chatbot or agents challenge not only from people's perspective, not only our role in society, but our very identity. To understand people's perception of AI deeper, we decided to test in 3 different studies what happens when people are exposed to the capabilities of generative AI. So the perception of threat doesn't have to be real to have an impact on people. What matters is that people believe that their social group is in some ways under threat. And in psychology, we distinguish between 2 different different types of threats. The first one is so-called symbolic threats, which challenge a group's value and identity. And the other one is realistic threats, which involve competition over resources like jobs or safety. So starting from this assumption, in this first experiment, people were randomly assigned to one out of two different conditions. In the first condition, they could read a real text written by a real journalist. And in the experimental condition, we asked them to watch ChatGPT working on producing a paragraph on the same topic. Here, in Italian topic was something regarding the discovery of America. Before this experimental manipulation, we measure several controlling variables. For example, we assessed the previous knowledge of AI technology and the frequencies of ChatGPT use, but also attitudes, the existing attitudes toward AI. After the manipulation, sorry, one condition, people could see ChatGPT at work, and the other condition that was the same output but written by a real human. We assessed negative emotion, positive emotion measured at that very moment. So after that, our participants faced the ability of ChatGPT and perceive the perception of threat, realistic threat, so a threat to resources, but also threat to human identity. And we tested a process model. So that means that we can in some way shape how people psychologically react to these stimuli. And we discovered that when people were exposed to ChatGPT, reported higher level negative emotion compared to people who saw the work of a human journalist. And this negative emotion predicted higher perception of symbolic threat. Just to remember, symbolic threat refers to the perception that another group, in this case, AI agents, is threatening my group values, beliefs, and cultural norm. On the other hand, we also found that people who were exposed to the abilities of ChatGPT to recreate text also report a higher perception, a higher negative emotion, but also higher perception of realistic threat. That it's kind of threat that refers more to physical resources, such as jobs, economic opportunities, or safety. In the second experiment, well, I have to say that when you're doing science, one study, especially when we're working with people perception, one study is not enough to claim that people perceive AI abilities as threatening. Moreover, one could argue that this perception was specific of ChatGPT. Therefore, to corroborate our result, we conducted a second study and indeed a third study. In this case, people were exposed to another generative AI capable of generating images. In this case, the study was exactly the same as the previous one. We just changed the source of the example of AI. In this case, we adopted DALL-E, that is a platform for producing images. And in the control condition, participants were shown pictures taken by a real photographer. And in the experimental condition, participants were shown two images generated by DALL-E. Of course, all the visual stimuli were pretested to ensure that they did not have any intrinsically positive or negative valence. And again, we tested the same model we tested in the previous study, and we confirmed the results. So people who were exposed to the capabilities of DALL-E reported higher level negative emotion that in turn promoted higher perception of threat. But we also conducted the third study, changing again the source, the example of AI. In this case, we asked participants to evaluate the product of this platform, AI-based, that is voicified, that has the ability to reproduce song and create a song with the voices of famous singer. In this case, in the control condition, we asked participants to listen to a real song sung by Freddie Mercury. And in the experimental condition, we asked participants to listen to a song that was generated with Voicify, that has the typical style of Beatles with the voice of Freddie Mercury. And again, we confirmed exactly the same pattern of results. So people who were asked to listen to a song generated by an AI reported high level of negative emotion that in turn predicted higher level of realistic threat and threat to human identity. So as a whole, overall, this study suggests that the perception, what might be an explanation for the perception of threat we observed across 4 or 5 studies. One possibility is that participants implicitly compare AI's abilities to their own ability, especially since These were abilities that once were seen as uniquely human, the capability to generate text, music, images. This comparison may have led them to see AI as a social outgroup, one that competes not just for jobs or resources, but also challenges what it means to be human. In response, they experience negative emotion as a kind of defense mechanism. So this phenomenon can also be related to another perception, another bias that we are finding in psychological literature. It's called algorithm aversion. That is the tendency to distrust or reject decision made by algorithm, especially when they enroach on domains that traditionally are reserved for human expertise, for example, like moral judgments. So just to conclude, maybe from my point of view, it's time to rethink or to change the language we use, especially from society point of view. I mean, the term artificial intelligence, remember something that is really autonomous. I would suggest to use the term augmented intelligence that could be more appropriate than AI, so artificial intelligence, because it highlights the idea that these technologies are meant to support and not to replace human capabilities. This framing may help reduce perceived threat and encourage a more positive collaborative view of artificial intelligence. It's about designing with people in mind, what we might call user-centered design or anthropocentric design rather than just technocentric design. So I think that just this, it could be useful just to change this perspective, to change people's attitude and this perception of threat about AI that is coming as a revolution to our society. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alessandro, for this insightful presentation. Same, so is there any question from the audience? So please raise the hand or use the chat.
Hedi, I think there are questions in the chat at the moment, also
Yeah,
for
I
the
see
previous
Maria.
intervention. Yeah.
Yes, Maria, please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for this presentation. I find it very, very inspiring. My question would be, so since your let's say your conclusion goes more towards the definition of artificial intelligence, I'm wondering what about, because at the end of the day, we are going to have this big revolution across all the organizations, across all the society, and actually, what could be the balance when we need to hire people who, how this should be tackled, this challenge of the AI towards the skills, or anyway, the knowledge that we need in AI to be able to tackle the big challenge. So inside the organization, how much should be invested in train current employees? How much would be invested in hiring new people who would have already expertise in AI? So what would be the balance in that? Because indeed, this perception of people that about society, but also the perception of employees towards the AI is very clear, no? Is tangible. Also, us, within colleagues, we were wondering how we should, what is balanced, what is the balanced AI, what is the balanced relationship that we can have with AI to be able to, to be happy and to feel that actually we are not controlled, but yet we keep the control, and this control is also everything is anyway is implemented in an ethical way. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your question. It's very complicated. And the short answer is, I think that it's a matter of awareness and how much people are educated about AI. If you know how a technology works, it always has been like this. If you know how a technology works, then you can control and you are not feel threatened by the technology. But from a psychological perspective, I think that the rise of AI as a social companion, as a social colleague, present both exciting opportunities and serious challenges. So from a psychological perspective, humans are naturally inclined to anthropomorphize, to attribute human-like traits, intention, and emotion to non-human agents. But I think that the next step is to develop a more emotionally capable AI system on the one hand. On the other hand, we need to invest more on how people understand this technology. So I don't know. In my opinion, we always think, well, not us that are here, but lay people think about AI as something really autonomous. That in some ways it is, but it's just a technology. We are developing this technology. If you are aware on how it works and what are the drawbacks on using this technology, then you can control it. I would say. I don't know if I'm answering you right.
Thank you so much, Alessandro. I think that, there's no one only answer. It's very, as you said, it's quite complex. And yeah, it's difficult to give just one answer.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I can see what you mean. And yeah, I think just keep discussing and understanding together where to go. We can find maybe, the direction towards, an ethical way to have this companion, if you want to see one side of artificial intelligence, yeah. Thank you.
That's great. So now let's move from the social companion to the business companion. So let's see the degree of acceptability in business and how we are dealing with integration of AI and the compliance to the AI in business, in enterprises. For that, I'm happy to host Mortis Homan, who is the lead of product innovation and artificial intelligence at EQS Group, and also Nadia Giuliani, also she's the lead for international markets, specializing in sustainability, compliance, and digitalization. So, guys, I let you manage how to present, how to split between you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And I think all the presentations were super insightful. It's very exciting to hear that all these considerations are something that is going on, on an ongoing basis at EQS as well. So I will just share my screen. Here we go. Great. I'm assuming it works.
Perfectly.
Yes. So about having a clear vision and applying it in a specific context, that's what Moritz and I will be talking about today. It's harnessing trustworthy AI in a business context, and the business context is in compliance and ethics specifically. So I really want to start diving into some of the things we already covered, but more specifically to compliance and ethics specialists is looking into how they actually think about AI, how we have actually observed that they think about AI. But before diving into that, I'll just briefly give some of the viewers who are not familiar with EQS a little bit of background information of who we actually are. So we are a leading global provider in governance, risk, and compliance, specifically software. And we were founded in the year of 2000 in Germany, and now have more than 14,000 customers worldwide, about 13 offices, and plus 800 employees. What we really aim to do is not only adopting AI, we really want to help create more transparency and integrity among our customers. So our mission is to create trusted companies. Now, how do we do that? We have a product vision, and we really want to enhance integrity and transparency. And we have divided our business model into essentially 4 pillars, as you see here. We offer data privacy software, compliance and ethics software, investor relations, and sustainability management. Now, what's very unique about this is that we want to introduce all in one platform and with an integrated approach. So suddenly this integration or one platform approach really offers a lot of opportunities, specifically also for augmented AI, if we want to use Alessandro's terms. All right, so before diving into specifically how we approach trustworthy AI, let's dive into the perception of AI from 2023 to 24. And we do see some trends, right? We need to kind of follow what's going on, not only that we push the adoption, but also how is it perceived. So first of all, we see that there is a rapid increase in adoption in compliance or among compliance professionals, increasing from 49% in 2023 to 87% in 2024. So we can say that that's quite significant. If we continue, we also see that once applying AI, there's also reported a significant impact on how that influences their day-to-day works, and that is also increasing significantly from 23 to 24. What we also see is that not only for those who adopt it, we see that there is a better adoption or a successful adoption rate among companies that have actually implemented policies on how to use as responsible AI. So that's also something that we really see and bear in mind. Now a little bit more into more recent, research and looking into how is it that compliance professionals perceive adoption of AI in their own compliance tasks and work. We can see that still today, a lot or more than the majority, it's 51.6% of our customers are already adopting or using artificial intelligence, but there are still, like similar to Maria's question here today, unsure of how to actually enhance it or adopt it more. There's still a lot of uncertainty here. And then also, if we look into and ask them what they believe are the main challenges of leveraging AI in compliance, we see that the majority are mostly concerned for now about data security and compliance. But there is also a significant amount that also lacks technical expertise on really how to adopt it. So there are a lot of different aspects that we'll have to consider as a company in order to harness or adopt trustworthy AI for compliance professionals. So that was a little bit about background information, and now Moritz will take over and talk a little bit about how EQS Group approaches AI in our business.
Yes, thank you, Nadia. And let me take over the screen share for this. I think you need to stop it for me to do that. Yes, thank you. So I hope you can see my screen now. So picking back up on what Nadia had already shown us. So the good news for all of these participants that would like to use AI more, but struggle about how to approach this and how to use these tools, and maybe don't also have the technical expertise to do that. The good news is it's getting easier and easier. So this is a photo of me. It's, I promise, 100% real, actual, authentic photo that I took last week, a selfie. But now this is me as an anime character. This is me as a Pixar 3D cartoon character. This is me as a Lego figure. This is me as a knitted toy figure. And this is me as a Simpson character. And all of these images I created directly in ChatGPT, which is possible since 2 weeks now. And you may have seen this all over LinkedIn or Facebook or your favorite social media platform already, because it's getting easier and easier now to do these things within the same models. So this multimodality of models is increasing. So models start to understand images and videos better and better. They can analyze them, they can give feedback on them, and they also increasingly get better and better at generating them. And image generation has worked quite well to some degree already, but it was still a little bit nerdy, and you had to know which tools to use and how to use them. And now this is getting really more mainstream and publicly available to more and more users. And not only can you do fun things like this, but you can also ask it to manipulate or merge different images together. So you could also take this photo of yourself and ask it to combine with another photo and then get something like this, which you can still see has some problems. So if you look very closely, then you will see that whatever artificial version of me that is supposed to be is not 100% matching to what I actually look like. And there are also some issues on the wording on this bottle. But if you compare this to what was possible in image generation just 1 year ago, this is quite significant, because especially the font and text consistency is on a whole new level. than what was possible just 1 year or even a couple of months ago. And now this is all fun, but this being accessible to hundreds of millions of ChatGPT users will show many, many new use cases. One of which my wife recently discovered last week, because we have finally managed building our house and the basement in our house. And we have this little nook in the basement, which we don't really know yet what to do with. So again, she took a photo of that, uploaded it to ChatGPT and asked it for some design and interior design proposals of what we could do with this nook. And ChatGPT came up with this proposal, which my wife is very happy with. So we'll now make a trip to IKEA to try and find a shelf like this that we can use to put some supplies in there. So the capabilities of AI are increasingly impressive, and these were now more like private examples. But if you take those and translate them into kind of more of a professional context, it's quite impressive of how these different modalities coming together and how different skills coming together that AI can work in are increasingly having an impact also on things that we do as a software company, for example. Because what you can do now as well is you can, instead of manually creating software traditionally, like we used to do basically a year ago or just a couple of months ago, you can now also prompt other AI systems and ask it to create actual digital products for you, or at least prototypes of products that look surprisingly real and are actually functional if you want them to be. So this is just an example where we've used this prompt on the left here that you can see. Please create a modern, enterprise-ready and easy to use SaaS platform for compliance and ethics. And then it takes a couple of minutes, and then it can create this. So this is a screenshot of this prototype, which actually works in the browser. So you can actually click around in it. So it takes some minutes to actually write the code and come up with these visuals and also generate icons if necessary, and then puts together something that looks surprisingly real as an actual product. And there's actually actual examples of users out there that used tools like this or similar tools like this to create entire CRM systems, for example, within a couple of hours, and actually took them to market. So the speed of innovation is quite breathtaking right now. And this is also just for us. This is new tools that we are now looking into adopting, and it's quite crazy because we would not have seen something like this coming so fast. It was kind of expected that AI gets better and better also at coding and software development, but this is quite impressive still. And we now have to, like all of us, learn to work with these new tools, and it's really like working on another level. So something that would have taken a week or even 2 can now be done in a couple of hours if you know how to. And this puts us into a bit of a challenge because our customers are traditionally more on the skepticism or conservative side. So these are some examples of typical roles that we serve with our software solutions: compliance and ethics teams, data protection officers, sustainability managers, also legal counsels. So they typically, whenever we come with AI ideas, they have many questions around reliability and how are these models trained and where does this data go? Or also, can I use your software also entirely without AI? Which is possible because we know that this the skepticism exists, or also these concerns exist. And the challenge that we have is that we see a wide range currently of customers that want or have to use our software solutions without any AI model in the background, basically, but also customers that come to us proactively with a list of 20 or 25 ideas of what they would love AI to do in our software solution. So we kind of have to navigate that spectrum and strike that balance between providing a good solution for all of those. But we also see it as a bit of a phase like we had a couple of years ago, where most enterprises still wanted to have all of their software on premise, on their own servers, on their own machines, versus going into the cloud. And that was a transition which is now almost done, I would say. And rarely any enterprise questions anymore to have software in the cloud. So we see a similar kind of transition with AI as well. But we appreciate that we especially have a customer group that has a couple of additional questions, I would say, about the use of AI, and many of which are very justified. So the way that we talk about this and the way that we approach it is that we see AI and the rollout of AI in our software products also as kind of a stacked exercise. A lot of what we do today is in the bottom of this pyramid. It's a lot about automation of repetitive administrative tasks. So anything that you do on a daily basis where you think, okay, this could really be done by a robot. So let's have a robot or an AI system do it. And then on top of that, we see additional layers of more complexity stacked onto that, where it's also harder to get AI really reliable today and to leverage the full potential. And I will not go, also for the sake of time, into all of the details here, but we see this as kind of a ongoing development and an ongoing evolution of AI capabilities that we're also looking to roll out consistently to our customers and users. This is an overview of AI capabilities that we leverage in our software platforms today. So as mentioned, a lot of it is in the bottom layer. So a lot of what we offer to our customers today is automated translation, automated transcription, automated assignment of compliance incidents or reports into specific categories, automated anonymization, so the identification of personal data and the anonymization of that. Also summaries, also a chatbot that answers employee questions based on existing corporate policies. So a lot in the kind of automation layer, and in between, we're now exploring many use cases out of the layers above. And we do that a lot together with our customers. So very often we design something, we put ideas out, make them very tangible already, and then walk our customers through those ideas to get tangible feedback, and also to learn about what works, what doesn't work, what is maybe still a little too much out there, and is maybe not a topic for today, but for in a couple of months or even years down the road. And then finally, and this is our last slide for today, we have a couple of promises that we've just learned are very important and very crucial for our customers to highlight. So we have kind of three main promises when it comes to how we manage our customers' data in relation to AI, which is the customer data is never processed outside of Europe. So most of our customers are European and European Union based. So this matters a great deal to them. We never use customer data to have any public models trained. So kind of the early hiccups that we've seen happen in ChatGPT, we rule those out. And also the customer data is never stored outside of the hosting location that the actual software runs on. And then furthermore, as already mentioned, that our customers always have the choice. This matters a lot to our specific group of customers and users, that there's always a choice, because many of our customers either have very strict policies or on the other hand, many questions around data privacy, data protection, sometimes also ethical aspects of the AI models. So we also always offer this option. Yes, thank you for listening.
Perfect. Thank you very much for being on time. So can have one question from the audience before going to the panel, and let's say have a summary about the different presentations today, and then go through some common topics to dive into together. I don't know if there is any raised hand. I don't see, and also as I said, you can go through the chat. Let's start with the panel, and then if there is any specific question for Nadia or Mortis, you can go through it. I mean, when seeing and hearing all those presentations, we can summarize that security is part of building security, let's say security, governance. All of those aspects are part of building trust on using AI and adopting AI, but there is other aspects also. And so in terms of business, but also in terms of society, there is a risk, or let's say a perception regarding the risks and the threat coming from AI into their business, because if in case AI is not secure, that there is damage, harm, and so on, but also there is this perception regarding how AI is replacing humans and so on. So I think from what we hear today, this is important to work together in terms of explaining and raising awareness about this technology, and then also understand what is doable, what is not doable, and how regulation is dealing with that, and how regulation is helping to improve the trust. I remember a few years ago was doing research on AI to convince people in the industry to adopt AI and convince people. And then when ChatGPT came, like a lot of people from the scientific community now saying, don't adopt like this. You need to think before. So things are changing with this hype and so on. But let's start about the risks. And I will start with Frederick, because in the 2025 AI safety report, it's highlighted that risks from misuse of general purpose AI models in, for example, biological domain, because I know you worked on that. So what technical or policy measures does the EU advocate to, let's say, balance between innovation and safety, security in such general purpose models?
Thank you so much, Hedi. Yeah, so risks from misuse. Yes, these risks are very real. We are actually already seeing them materialize, not so much in the biospace, luckily, because otherwise we might have another pandemic on our hands, but very much in the cyberspace. So we have seen, for instance, a Hong Kong bank frauded out of 25 million, famously, through a deepfake and some interesting social engineering on the back end. And we are seeing AI-generated scams. So this is a risk that we are facing today. And if you extrapolate that to more powerful models, enabling ever less capable actors to do ever more harm, then it gets really scary when you think, for instance, about the cybersecurity of our critical national infrastructure, or indeed in the biological domain. And as Hedi says, this is my background. I did a PhD in biotechnology and bioinformatics at Oxford a long time ago, before deep diving on AI. And it is, to a biotechnologist, it is really apparent how the power to explain and adapt to the user's needs and give tailored advice and troubleshooting and so on can be super duper helpful in the laboratory, both to beneficial scientists trying to develop vaccines and to potential terrorists trying to develop pandemics, right? So this is sort of sketching out the misuse risk, right? This could be a bad actor using a model to enable some kind of attack. And these scenarios are real today in the cyber domain, and there are real risks in the bio domain. This is all a bit more behind closed doors because it's national security relevant, but I think that is well understood. So what do we do about it? There is an emerging industry best practice of risk assessment and risk mitigation for these types of risks. So frontier model developers, the developers of the most advanced general purpose AI models, actually, most of them somewhat regularly conduct studies to test how their models could be misused, and then they implement some level of mitigation against that. For instance, when you ask ChatGPT how to build a bomb, it will say something like, oh, this is very illegal, I'm not going to help you, it's also dangerous, please don't try it at home. And it's not going to give the recipe. Now, if you are on X at all, you will know that this is not very robust. Models can be jailbroken, and ChatGPT can be made to tell you and me and anyone how to build a bomb and do worse things than that within 5 minutes these days. So clearly, there is a gap where the safety research side of things has just not caught up with the capabilities research side of things here. So a couple of things that we advocate for at the AI office is obviously innovation and promoting trust and fostering research into how to make better safeguards. Sorry, now my light is turning off, but I think you can still see me. So we work with our colleagues in the unit that works with the Horizon Europe project to foster research into those areas and to ensure that there's better mitigations down the line. And then on the regulatory side of things, we aim to work with providers. Providers under the AI Act actually have an obligation. The providers of the most advanced models, the models that may pose systemic risk, under Article 55 of the AI Act, are obliged to conduct risk assessment and risk mitigation. And then there's a couple more articles in the 90s, 92, 93, and so on, where the AI office can actually request specific mitigations to be implemented. So here we are working with providers to help them comply with these obligations when they enter into application in August this year. And then one of the things that we are doing there is the Code of Practice. That is a co-regulatory document that that is being drafted by independent expert chairs with input from stakeholders across industry, civil society, academics, and others. And this Code of Practice contains a whole chapter. Actually, the largest chapter is on risk assessment and risk mitigation, including some very detailed steps for how to set tiers of unacceptable risk and how to then check whether a given model meets these tiers. And as I said earlier, there is this emerging industry best practice. Companies like OpenAI and Anthropic and Google DeepMind, and to some extent Meta, regularly publish their frameworks for how they do this type of risk assessment and mitigation. And the Code of Practice really builds on this emerging industry best practice and helps providers comply with their obligations under the AI Act without introducing too much new burden, but still bearing in mind that these are systemic risks that may threaten, as many leading researchers believe, may threaten humanity as a whole. They should be taken seriously. So the code really then also compels providers who sign up to be fairly thorough in their risk assessment and mitigation. And so I think this is basically the AI office's dual, like two feet approach to this, right? We foster innovation on safety methods and tools and better precautions, and we help providers comply with the obligation to do risk assessment and mitigation.
That's great. So here we hear from the policy perspective. Now I will ask Alessandro and then Mortis from the social analysis regarding the risk, because it's not only about the let's say the acceptability and how people feel, but there is real risks and how people deal with that, and if the regulatory framework can help to make people trust on AI and adopt it. And then Mortis from the business perspective.
Yeah, can I start?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, from a psychological perspective, I think that we need to focus on education and awareness, what we may call some kind of AI literacy, or I would say digital technology literacy, because today I think that the most important topic is helping people, especially non-experts, in understanding how this technology works and how they can play. So I would say that regulatory laws and this kind of approach can help in reducing anxiety, fostering a more constructive engagement between people and technology. For example, we ran a couple of studies some months ago in which we found that simply increasing people's knowledge about how ChatGPT operates reduced their perception of fear and toward the technology. I think that this can suggest that if we make how AI works, not at the very basic level, but just if we made this technology more transparent and accessible, can empower users and lead to a more positive attitudes toward this technology. In this regard, it would be, in my opinion, to be extremely valuable to introduce some sort of technological education in school curricula to equip younger generation with the tools that they need to critically and for engaging with AI. I think that at the same time, it's also crucial that those who develop legislation and technology should be aware that we need more transparency on how they work and what can be done with this technology. I think that clear explanation of how AI models function what data they use, and how decisions are made would go a long way in building trust and encouraging responsible use.
And do you think that if we explain like regulation like the AI Act, for example, it can help to that?
Yeah, in my opinion, yeah, because I start within the first version of AI Act, I think when first comes out, and I think that knowing that some kind of technologies are regulated, it could be enough for building more trust. Because, you know, this is a technology, we don't know how it works, but there is someone.
You know, it's the same if we get the plane, and most of people we don't know how it works, but
Yeah.
like there is some fear like from like accident, but we have trust on that. We'll say no, so I think there is a lot of hype beyond the AI that make people fear, but is like, as you said, is a technology by the end as any other technology that you can use for making harm, but also can be very useful. Mortis, when we talk about the AI risks and adoption in companies, for me, there is two kind of risks. The one is from the business perspective for the company, but in the same time for the workforce in companies. And this also linked to the social aspect regarding the perception of adoption. It can be seen from business, how to make value from the business, but also in the same time, people who decide to use or not, they are like, human beings. And then they have all those emotional relation when interacting with AI. And they fear that, okay, I will be replaced. Maybe if I will take the decision to use AI, I will lose my job.
Yeah, I think the challenge is that oftentimes people really need to see an experience for themselves, basically. And in general, the European AI Act, we are big fans of actually, because we do think that a lot of the technology can also go sideways. And we're actually happy that I think globally we managed to kind of strike a balance between nations that are more kind of let's ignore the regulation and let's just focus on innovation and let's build the latest frontier stuff. And the European Union, for example, that says we need some guidelines in place. And overall, we will find a good balance between all of this. And I think one part of the European AI Act is also that companies should invest into like internal education and training of their workforce around how to use these tools, which I think in general is a good thing. I think it cannot replace the kind of own experience that I believe anybody working in any job has to go through right now, to basically for their own very real job understand what can these systems do, to what degree, how can I collaborate with them to stay relevant in my job, and how will my field basically develop over time. Because I think no amount of like prescribed training from a company of this is how this tool works can replace this kind of own seeing of how things will unfold. So I think the most important thing is that people, especially in the same functions or in the same fields, talk openly about this, which I still feel we're not doing enough. So kind of everybody is experimenting with their own things and doing, like somebody does something with ChatGPT, something does something with some other model in some degree. And I think there's not enough exchange yet about what do we see working, what do we see critical, how far do people want to go, in what use cases, and basically do this joint learning of what works and what doesn't, and where do we also want to draw lines and see bigger risks for any field.
That's great. When we talk about risk, also, when we talk about also next generation of AI, we say like, okay, this is the deployment of AI in the physical world. And then it goes also with more capabilities and cognitive capabilities in AI system. Martin, I mean, what are the challenges that we can face more and more in terms of AI governance when it comes to deploying AI in the physical world?
Yeah, maybe if you allow me first also to respond to Moritz and what was said before, I do agree with Moritz. I think we should have way more experience of using and building machine learning and AI and put it to production, because that's the only way to really learn what kind of challenges we face and also learn what should be added to our tech stack in order to keep control. And with using and building, I don't mean just playground stuff or playing around with models. I actually mean bringing it to production. Otherwise, we still don't learn. It's like driving a car. Of course, you have to take lessons. Of course, you have to do your theory exam. But in the end, you actually have to drive a car and also accept the risk that maybe you run into an accident at some point. It might even can kill you, but you won't learn driving if you just read books. So I strongly believe we should actually build things and put things in practice. Otherwise, we will never learn it. And then I think the most easy controls to have in place is in the end monitoring, is explainability, is also alerts and act on alerts, is that feedback loop you have to have as well. Those are also over the past 10 years, those were the most obvious controls you have to have in place to actually act quickly, learn and improve. And also it's actually quite similar to a car when I think about it. You have to have a dashboard in place that actually knows what's happening and then act on alerts you have on your dashboard. It's that easy in the end. And I strongly believe we should do that as a European Union, as companies, as governments. We should do that way, way more and stop only debating what kind of things could go wrong potentially and theoretically.
All right, that's great that you mentioned explainability. I will ask this question to Araj, because when we talk about explainability of model, there is two kinds of explainability. There is the explainability to the model developer. It's about the model itself. But as an end user, I will trust the explainability that I can understand from my background, from the context that I'm using in terms of AI. So how we can develop this and how can match this two kind of explainability, same to increase the trust from the end user.
That's a question to me or to someone else?
This is for Iraj.
I'll shut up.
No, I think this is actually a current challenge. I think, and this is an ongoing challenge in my opinion. I mean, we have to define trust first of all. What are the metrics of trust? I mean, could it be subjective? What? I mean, do we have anything in place that tells us that this is trustworthy or not? I mean, from a developer point of view, if they know how the model should work and should behave, they may get more insights into the explainability. But for end user, it may be difficult. So
yeah, that's difficult, challenging. So Martin, how you are dealing with that in deploy? Do you have plans for that?
Yeah, if you talk about explainability, explainability only works if it is understandable to people, and people have different contexts. So if I explain to someone here in the office where I live in Utrecht, where I live, I probably give a different story than to anyone in this call, because there's different context, there's different knowledge about about the thing you're working on. So I think it's more understandable AI than explainable AI even. You should test if people understand what you give them. So I think that's most obvious in healthcare if you talk about explainability. So the thing you explain to a doctor is quite medical, but the thing you often explain to a patient is more in the realm of people similar to you with a similar age and a similar, I don't know, BMI. The treatment of X and Y works best. That's probably a way better explanation than you go really deep in all the medical technical stuff. So it really depends on understandability, and you can test that also with a feedback loop. So if people can actually give feedback on the outcome of a model with certain explainability, it's often a pretty good explainer. So in that way, you can accommodate for that. And indeed, in Deep Learning, we provide a lot of different type of explainability methods. So some are really accurate and go really deep, but are useless for people on the street. And some actually go quite superficial, but work quite well for people on just normal civilians in that sense.
Quickly, Raj, you want to reply, but we are over time.
I want to add here that probably depending on the AI explainability on its own may not be sufficient all the time. Maybe we need to bring in the human here in the prompting that explainability to actually to bring in that context, bring in kind of other aspects that will drive the navigate through the explainability further and get actually more informed kind of explainability.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And also, let's say, I'm quite happy with all of those insights and let's say alignment regarding the vision towards making AI trustworthy and also bring more capabilities to AI systems. So here where innovation is done is this responsible AI innovation that we are advocating in Europe regarding our values, and we are proud about this. And I think the AI office is balancing between the regulation and the innovation together. So, and as Frederick said, like even in terms of safety, also it's about innovating in terms of safety, and this is very important. So last week we had a discussion with EI office director in a panel, and she well mentioned the, let's say, the imbalance towards innovation in the office. There is 1 unit about regulation and 4 units for innovation. So that's great, but you know there is a lot of speculation regarding the AI office, and yeah, Europe is over-regulating, but we are doing this towards have more innovation, I think. So before concluding and thanking all our speakers today, I'm sorry we are running a bit over time, but we have a quick survey to do, and I give the floor to Jessica to share the screen, and we can go all together through the slideshow to collect more input. All your inputs will be used also for making a roadmap about innovation in terms of AI. So it will be very useful for us. So please, let's take those 2 minutes to do it together.
Yes, hello everybody. Thanks, Hedi, for giving me the floor. I hope that everybody can see my screen. With the Mentimeter survey, it will be really fast. So just take some minutes to address some questions that we have prepared for you. So you can use the QR code with your phone, or you can go to menti.com using the code that you see above this screen. Just 1 second. Okay, now should be okay. So don't worry, you can see the code in every slide that I am showing now. So they will be, it's this Mentimeter survey, it's composed by 2 parts. So the first part is about the knowledge validation on AI, so AI insight. And we kindly ask you to reply to these questions. So what are the main gaps to develop and adapt those AI capabilities according to your knowledge? Okay, I see people that are already replying. Thanks. I will go just some seconds more, then I will go to the next slide. Of course, you can comment on everything you would like to say or to add, because this is anonymous survey. Some more seconds more, and then I will go to the second question. Thanks to those who are replying. Thanks a lot. I'm going to the second question. So what is the most risk impact of such capable AI from your perspectives? You see your 4 replies here and options, and you can choose the one that is most suitable for you. Thanks a lot. Some more seconds. Okay, I'm going to the next one. Thanks a lot. So what is the main opportunity of AI innovation from your perspective? Thanks a lot. Okay, we go to the, I think, last one for this part of the survey. So what is your recommendation for the future innovation in AI? So this is the last question of the part regarding the technical aspect of this webinar. So the AI and innovation in AI. Thank you. Okay, thanks a lot. And then we go to the satisfaction survey of this webinar that, as Stefania said at the beginning, also by Hedi, this is a part of a series of webinars, and we are waiting also for you to register for the next webinar would be on the 10th, so on Thursday, 10th of April. Thank you. So has the webinar helped you in increasing your knowledge regarding the topic? And of course, this is really useful for us in order to organize the next webinars. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to the next one. So are you satisfied with the overall webinar organization? So everything that was behind the webinar and before the webinar happening. Thanks a lot. And then would you like to stay informed about our future activities? So the activities under the EIC Communities project and also under the Future Tech Week is happening this week. We are really glad of this. Thank you. And then here, if you would like to add any comments or feedback, you can add here, or you can also send us an email, and then we can also continue the discussion on via email. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. I would like to thank again our speakers for the insightful discussion. Also thank the attendees. We are so sorry for the delay. We are a bit running over time, but it's a very, very nice topic. So it was great to hear all those discussion and insight. And then also I remind about the next webinar on Mind of Machines on 10th of April. So thank you again. And also the recording will be shared with all of you. It will be also published online. So we keep you informed and hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.